Hi, I'm Kevin with Acteon. I'm going to give you a little bit of a tutorial on how to install one of our prime CBCTs. So I happen to be in a community health center where they are upgrading from a old 2D prime to a new 3D prime. This is what you will expect to get. So there's going to be a few different things that come with the machine. And if you're doing 3D, you want to make sure all of these things are here. First, you'll have the machine. In a lot of cases, this is actually going to be on its side with a wood pallet underneath it. And then this will be on top of it. This is the computer. It's very important that you have the computer with the machine. They are bonded, so if the computer goes missing, that in turn causes quite a problem during installation. And then this here is a calibration kit. So it's really best to take this kind of in two different sections or two different steps. I like to unpack the computer after I've unpacked the CBCT itself. Some notes and some tips and tricks is that reuse this box as your trash box. So first things first, you want to make sure that obviously the box is up. All right, that's important. And then once you do that, you can go ahead and cut off these two straps here. And I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Once those two straps have been cut and you can take the lid off, you'll notice that there is some cardboard that wraps this, as well as a wood plate or wood panel, if you will, that's wrapped around. What I like to do is go ahead and pull this cardboard up and out of here. It's a little harder to do it with one hand, but what I'm going to redo is rebuild this box in the old box. So basically reuse this right here, these two pieces of wood, to become the sides of my new box, to which I'll throw all my trash into. Okay, as you can see, every environment that you're going to work in is slightly different, so just be conscientious and careful of where you're working. If you happen to be in a stair center like this, make sure you're practicing proper safety protocols, PPE, and making sure you understand what's the dirty side and what's the clean side, or if there is one. So anyways, moving on. Once you've taken off the sides and you've built your box, this here is kind of what I'm going to go over, but it's just the step-by-step on what to do to put the machine on the wall, how to do it, things of that nature. You can save it, read it, or in this case we're just going to throw it away because I don't need it. So start off by getting rid of the styrofoam. I like to go ahead and put this neatly in here because when you put it neatly, you save a lot of space. So put it in like so, and then you're going to have here. So when you get to here, go ahead and take your knife and cut up along here so we can get rid of this. This board is here because when it's on its back, or in this case when this is on the bottom on the pallet, it just protects the unit when anything is put on top, or if anything pressure is put on top of it. So go ahead and just cut this free, which in this case I can do like so. And you'll go ahead and toss this board in the trash. It is also connected with some tape. Just go ahead and cut it loose. And then this becomes your trash board. So you can go ahead and get rid of that. And put this in the box as well. All right, so now what you don't need is this right here. This can all be trashed. And then be conscientious of this plate here. It's very heavy and it will tip over and fall on the floor. Let me talk to you a little bit about this plate. So this plate is an optional plate. You'll notice the bolt pattern on this plate also matches up to these here. If you wanted to, you could put the plate on the wall and then you could secure the machine to the plate. If you're doing something like 16 on center studs, this would be what you need. Now, I personally don't really like the plate. I like going directly on the wall. I think it looks aesthetically a little bit more pleasing. Now, with that being said, I do think that you want to make sure you have the most secure route to mount this machine. In this case, we already have backing behind the wall. It's a solid wall with a couple of, I think they're 2x12s running through here. At the minimum, 2 sheets of 3/4 inch plywood. We prefer oak, but you want to make sure you have the proper backing. Now, as far as backing is concerned, you're going to want to talk to your Acteon rep and get the information for that. Every location is different. I can't speak on the different requirements for different states. I could just tell you that in this area, that's what we're going to do is the 2x12s, and we're going to go ahead and mount the machine to that. So I'm not going to use this. This is just going to be trash. If you decided you wanted to use it. Now, here's another interesting thing. If you decided you wanted to do that and you had the proper backing, you could actually give this to your handyman ahead of time, right? Whoever is putting the backing maybe behind the wall, you can give this to them. They can mount the plate for you, which upon your install makes it extremely easy for you. Now, one caveat with that is you want to make sure they mount the plate exactly the right height, because you'll see in a little bit, the way that this is installed is this machine here slides against the wall, and this simply mounts to the wall while still in this styrofoam. So if this plate is too high, or even worse, too low, you're going to be in a world of pain. So it is an option to do that, but you want to make sure it's done exactly the right dimensions from the ground. So the other thing you'll see here is, obviously, you don't have a wall plates for the electricity. Somebody's going to need to come do that. And you'll also notice that the electricity and the Cat 5s are behind the where the machine's going to be. You can do that. Personally, I kind of like it when they're a little bit lower, in case you need to unplug or plug it back in. You don't have to take the cover off the machine, but to each their own. This facility happened to have that from the previous machine, so we're going to reuse that. All right, once you've gotten that other plastic from around it removed, now we have just the styrofoam of the box. So here's what we've got going on. We've got the box down here. Underneath that, there's a piece of styrofoam. There is this styrofoam here, which you'll notice is wrapped with this black strap, and then we have this styrofoam at the end. At this point in time, we don't really need this styrofoam at the end. So what we can do is go ahead and just cut this free, like so, and we'll pull this styrofoam out. So you're gonna do that on both sides. And we'll just go ahead and pop this out of here. As it's no longer needed, we'll put it in our little box of trash. Like I mentioned, this definitely helps out. And now we have just this. So, get rid of all of your trash. And there you go. So this is really the core of what you're going to be mounting on the wall. The cardboard and the styrofoam down here, you are going to separate. Best way to do that is simply lift the machine up and just slide the cardboard off, or just crab walk the machine off the cardboard and get it off. You just want cardboard and this lower styrofoam gone. Okay, so now the machine is just on the floor. I got rid of the top, or which was technically now the the bottom of this with the styrofoam. And so here's the machine. So a few things to note when you get to this stage. Before you mount it on the wall, this, and this needs to be removed. You can actually remove these screws later. It's just helpful if you remove them now. These you definitely have to remove before you put it on the wall. Now, these will come out of here as well. And one more thing, this is the plug that it comes with. So depending on whether you're doing 120 or 240 or 110 or 220, you'll have to make your own plug or supply your plug. For this particular application, we're just going to be using this plug that we got from Home Depot. And this one would be just fine. So that's going to turn this into a 110 machine, and then we'll put in the appropriate fuses for it to be 110. So this plate here is here. What we're going to want to do is, if this wasn't kind of already pre-done, we would want to slide this against the wall and mark off where we're going to mount those screw holes. So let me show you what that would look like. Okay, so you might notice some changes in the background. Interesting story. On today's date, we actually have a multiple install situation. I happen to be at the wrong install. I was a little too early for that install. So here is the correct install. But with this install, what's better about this for the sake of the video is that the wall doesn't have any holes in it. We're at the same point in the process. So one thing that Jorge did was he likes to cut this part of the styrofoam out. The reason being is because it's easier for him to get his drill in when he's drilling the pilot holes for the bolts. So that could be something to take into consideration. Once you go ahead and get this unit kind of right up against the wall, you're going to need to use your level to make sure that you have a nice level unit. That's key. If there's any sort of slants, that's bad. You want to make sure it is perfectly level. Then we'll go ahead and we'll mark off all holes, mark the holes. We'll run some pilot drills. So over here, he's got his pilot drill, and then we have our lag bolts. So that's what we'll do now. But before we do that, we're going to remove this bolt, these screws, this bolt here, and I'll show you what happens. So once you have at least 2 bolts in, which we do, we can flip it up. Then we'll quickly put the lower bolts in. There's also a spot here you can put more bolts, so you can actually put a total of, I want to say 8, but 4 is ideal. And to flip it up, once this is mounted to the wall, we're just going to grab these handles, literally lift straight up and onto the wall. Now, one note, this will catch here, and you're going to hear a click. That's what's going to hold this machine in. So, actually, sorry, this clicks here. So you wanna make sure you hear that click of this being seated, and don't just walk away, because it could come right back down. Okay, so now that it's up on the wall, we're going to re-put in the bolts. If it's a little tight, it could be that we just need to raise the machine up slightly and push it until you can get it to be seated. Would you mind pushing the machine against the wall? There it goes. Now it seats right in. This falls into this place down here, and you'll need 2 hands, but you just twist that bolt in and it locks in. Now that the retaining bolts are in, we'll go ahead, we'll drill our pilot holes on either side, like so. Then we'll go ahead and put in our bolts, our lag bolts. When you put the lag bolts in, if you're going to use an impact wrench, make sure you don't drive them all the way into with an impact wrench. You want to finish it off with a standard hand wrench. So unfortunately, I'm sorry, a phone call rang and we got a little distracted here, but we moved on, so I couldn't record some of that. But if you notice here, we took the styrofoam off. So there were some straps that wrap the styrofoam. You cut the styrofoam and then it basically splits into two, this half and this half. This half, so the left-hand side, actually holds a bunch of things. It's going to hold the cover, which covers the lower area. It holds this little calibration box, as well as over here, as well as a bunch of other things. The plugs for the computer, so American plugs for the computer. It has the chin rests, it has the Ethernet cables, and it also has the exposure switch. Basically everything you need, the templates are in this styrofoam here. And you'll notice it just opens up into two, and then in this little pocket is where everything is. So here are all those pieces laid out. These you need for the computer. This is for the end user. These are the bite covers for both the TMJ and the normal bite sticks. This right here is the wall mount for the exposure switch. And obviously this is the exposure switch. I'm going to talk about this in a second. We'll put this to the side. Some shims, you don't really need this. This is a strap to kind of hold the patient's head in. Neither of those are really necessary. This is important, obviously. This goes in the machine. This is the little head clamps, the head restraints. The chin rests that the end user will need for positioning. The Ethernet cables, these go from the machine, the prime itself, directly to the PC. These don't go to the wall or to their server. These go from the machine to the PC. And then finally, this. So this is important. This determines how you're going, well, your plug determines how you're going to power it, but these are the fuses according to how you power it. So if you're doing 110, you have two sets of fuses here. And if you're doing the 220, you've got your fuses here. So here are your fuse holders. You're going to want to open these up, and then you're going to notice here this says F1, F2. This, well, it should say F1, but it got a little folded. This is F1 and this is F2. So if you're doing 110, you're going to need one of these F1s and one of these F2s, and you're going to need to put them in the correct spot in the machine. And let me go ahead and show you what I mean by that. So you're going to want to get all of this plastic off. Once you do that, there are screws right back here, two sets of screws, Phillips, that you'll unscrew so that you can lift this cover off. There's a few things that need to be done once this cover is lifted off. Let's go ahead and lift it. All right, so the cover is off. So once the cover is off, you're going to find this red brake. So you'll notice the machine, the front, there's this red brake. You're going to need to take these two bolts off, as well as this. So you need an Allen, and then either a wrench or an adjustable crescent. And then over here in the back, you'll see, if I can get that, boom, do you see where it says F2 and F1? These are where the two fuses go. So F2 and F1. So you'll take your fuse holders and the appropriate sized fuses for your installation. So in this case, you'll notice he put that plug 110. So we're going to use the 110 fuses, the F1 and the F2. We'll drop them in and we'll tighten them and we'll be good to go. So once this brake is removed and your fuses are installed and seated, the white one is in the front, the clear one is in the back, in case you ever were confused. All right, we can go ahead and put the cover back on. At this point in time, you can plug the machine in, and then over here, you can turn it on. You'll hear it click. The lights are going to light up here. If for whatever reason the machine does not go up or down, it's because that was pushed in. Just give it a little turn and you could pop it out. What we want to do is we want to go ahead and raise up the machine so we have access, or better access, to this lower area here. But as of right now, that can be done. We'll go ahead and we'll screw these back in. This just kind of clamps down, and then the screws get reseated in the back. This right here will eventually go onto here, but you want to remember to remove the 2 screws under here, or this will not go back on. This right here and this right here are the 2 Ethernet ports that those Ethernet cables that I showed you earlier connect to. So these 2 get connected and run directly to the PC. This right here is where the exposure switch gets connected. Let me talk about this a second. So this is the exposure switch. These 2 would go into this spot here and get tightened down. And then this would hang on the wall here, as so, and you would be able to bring it out to a certain degree to expose the patient. Now, if for whatever reason you did not want to use this, right, or you did not want this connected to the machine, you wanted extended. So let's just say in this particular application, they actually wanted to put the exposure switch right here, further away. What could be done is you could run 2 low voltage wires behind the wall, connecting here to over there. You could either mount this right off the wall in that spot, or you can use something like a doorbell or some sort of a activation button that completes the circuit. There's a few ways that you can do it. You can use, like, I've seen speaker wire, I've seen low voltage landscape lighting. The other thing I've seen is actually a Cat5, to where they snip the end of the Cat5, only use 2 of the wires here, have the other end of the Cat5 port there, and do the exact same thing there. But this is what you'll get from us, and this is how we do it. If you want to do something different like that, it's possible, but you'll need to get creative and supply your own parts. So I've gone ahead and put the temple supports in. Because this location is still technically under construction, I'm not going to insert these or do anything with this because I don't want anything to get lost. So I'm just going to put it on top of the machine. Also, because of that, these wires are just going to be connected, but remain in this void. And we'll go ahead and put the cover on. So we're going to kind of tuck everything in here, put the cover on so that nothing is lost. And once it's ready to be finally installed, we'll come back and do that. So, got some styrofoam on it. In a normal situation, we would notch out this void here. So this goes under the cover so that we can have the power cable and everything else kind of come out. But in this case, we're not gonna have to do that because we're keeping everything tucked in there temporarily. You're gonna wanna go ahead and use 2 hands, so I'm not gonna be able to do this fully, but you wanna go ahead and slide it in like so, right? You're gonna tuck in all the cables, and you'll use that screw hole there, in there, and then of course in the bottom. Be aware that this could be very frustrating, so just be very patient when you do this, because sometimes the screws will fall into here, then you got to take it all off to fish them out. So just be diligent and be careful and be aware. So once the unit is on the wall and the cover is secured, that's basically it for the physical installation. What I mean by that is you've physically gotten this on the wall, and now we really move to more software stuff, more calibrations. You would have 2 Ethernet cables coming out of here. You would have an exposure switch and a power cable. Now this could all be tucked in, sort of like what you saw earlier in the video, but this location is going to be running externally through here and then out to different various places. Because there's no desk for the computer yet, this is as far as we're going to go with this. So watch for part 2, which is going to pick up as to what happens with connecting it and finishing the calibrations and basically finishing this second half of the installation. By the way, total time on this install as of right now, with videos as well as everything else, is approximately 35 minutes.